Hi friends, I'm Shauna. Welcome to the channel. Today we have a topic that I'm feeling a little juicy. We're going to talk about the ways YouTube promotes discontent and really asking the question, can you ever be content watching beauty YouTube? Now, this video has a couple of parts. We're first going to talk about discontent somewhat briefly at the top of the video. Then we're going to get into the community and why I feel like the community, how this happened or how discontent can happen, or the cycle of the community that really can bring in that discontent, well, not initially, but over time. So let me just give you my thesis at the top of the video. My thesis is this: we came for the makeup, stayed for the community, left because of the discontent. I say leave, but I more mean like pivot content, pivot interest, or become hypercritical or disillusioned because of the discontent that comes from overconsumption. I mean, that is less catchy than the first part of it, but that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. I really want to get into it. If you're new here, I would love it if you would subscribe. We talk about a lot of things on this channel. We talk about makeup, we talk about fashion, we talk about contentment. We are on the contentment year, friends. We have Low Bite Bingo, Project Pants. It's a fabulous place to be. Love it if you would subscribe and join the channel. I would love to have you here, and all are welcome. I also have a second channel as well as a Buy Me Coffee and an Etsy store that I would love it if you would check out. Been working on this like paint with me for the second channel. It will come. Now, if you are here today, it is likely that you have seen this video here, where it's one of my top performing videos on the channel. This is about overconsumption in the beauty space, the ways that beauty YouTube promotes overconsumption. Now, it's my belief that overconsumption really fosters discontent. I think it makes a lot of us unhappy eventually, even if it served us at one point. And that's really where we're going with this video today. We're just gonna get into overconsumption and discontent right off the bat, and we're gonna apply it to the beauty community in just a little bit. Overconsuming requires little thought and often relies on instinct, impulse, and is often reactionary. You're buying a thing because of external influences or forces. That can really just be comparison or seeing other people have things or have lives that you covet, or having things that you don't have that you want. This does play a huge part in how we consume, whether you want to admit it or not. There's been full studies on this, which we'll quote in a little bit. People who are content in their lives and with their consuming habits, they have control. They are intentional because they've made the choice to consume in this way. And what happens when it comes to overconsuming, it's often overconsuming because it's mindless or thoughtless. We give little thought about it, and we let our reactions to things really drive our choices. It can also feel really good because part of why we consume is that, dopamine hit. What we love about consuming is the buying of the thing, not necessarily using the thing. And this can become a habit over time. When you indulge every whim and you do that regularly enough, that's a habit. When you let your feelings of discontent, of I don't have this thing, of this person's life is better than mine, be an influence on how you purchase, that becomes a habit. And when we do this over and over again, mindless consumption, thoughtless consumption becomes a habit. And that just becomes how we consume, and that becomes the normal. But it can also be that when it comes to something like makeup, we already love it. We're looking for the dopamine hit, and we are relying on that to feel good. When we see something that we want and we want the dopamine hit, we get so focused on that we indulge and we buy, and that becomes the habit too. So there's both positive and negative reinforcements that come in with shopping that ultimately bring discontent because there's never enough. We are consistently indulging in these habits, letting these run our lives and our choices. We're not even thinking, when is the end? When's enough? There is literally never enough. It's this constant chase of the next thing. How can we be happy with our lives when we're not actually thinking about our own contentment? To be content requires intentionality that isn't there if we're mindlessly consuming or putting our habits or consuming habits on autopilot. If there is literally never enough, or we feel compelled to buy something just because we don't have it, we'll never be happy. Like, we will never be happy. And while you might feel good consuming, discontent, I think, is going to come for most people at some point. You just can't keep it up. The finances, the behavior, the roller coaster of the up and down, you just can't keep it up. Or even the constant comparison to other people, you just can't keep up with it because it doesn't feel good. Now, I'm going to quote this 1995 article from American Behavioral Science. The author, Marsha, Richins, writes that exposure to idealized images leads consumers to compare, often unconsciously, their own lives with those represented in idealized advertising. Repeated exposure to idealized images raises consumers' expectations and influences their perception of how their lives ought to be, particularly in terms of their material possessions. The result of both of these processes for some consumers is consumer discontent and an increased desire for more. It creates a cycle. This never-ending, don't have it, want it, buy it, repeat, repeat, repeat. We let our lives and our decisions be run by our negative emotions, and we don't counter them. We just buy into them literally. And this study was done in 1995 that really demonstrates the power of this kind of behavior. And now in 2022, we have these examples of lives on YouTube and on Instagram that aren't just ads. She was talking about ads in this point. Now we do have ads, but we also have these curated lives and curated feeds that go into our discontent. Maybe that are an ad for the creator, even if it's not explicitly an ad, but also can make us feel this way. My life doesn't look like this, or I don't have this. And so this does play a role in how we consume and ultimately our discontent. We're going to get into the beauty community now, and I think before we can talk more about the discontent brought by the beauty community, I think we need to talk about why we came here in the first place and the place that it is. Because with all of its problems, there are still things and reasons that drew us here. I came to the beauty community in 2014, and I'm going to share a little bit about what I liked about the community. And I don't think that my thoughts then or why I came are really novel. When I found the beauty community in 2014, my eyes freaking, I was awakened. It was kind of what it felt like. I had no idea that this kind of community existed, period. At all. It was kind of shocking to find it, truthfully. I had only ever gone to YouTube for music videos. That was it. I had no concept of a literal community of people on YouTube. What I think is so attractive to a lot of people who find beauty YouTube is finding your people, finding the people who enjoy makeup just as much as you, and finding this place that you can share your interests and your passion with other people, even if you're just a consumer of this kind of content. What I really loved was that beauty YouTube prioritized and talked about makeup content in a serious way. It took this interest really seriously in a way that I had not experienced offline. And when I say seriously, I don't mean, this somber attitude. What I mean is talking about makeup in the way that people would talk about something like politics. It was treated as this genuine interest that people have, that was okay to have. And people talked about it with such passion and zeal like I had never seen before. Offline, even to this day, I do not have a single person that I can share my love of makeup with. Not one. And the people who I do are people that I met literally on beauty YouTube. The people who I talk about makeup and consumption with now are people, internet friends, if you will, that I met because of my channel. And my interest has been treated as frivolous my whole life, a waste of time. And when I was younger, I was pretty vocal for a long time about wanting to get my PhD. People took me way less seriously when I talked about makeup or showed any modicum of interest in makeup. It was somehow this negative mark on my character, that made me superficial or dumb or less than. They used that information to know all they needed to know about me. I never felt that way on Beauty YouTube, and here there's people who are all different ages, who have different jobs, live all across the world, just different people with really interesting lives that have come to this space. Here, makeup is never treated as frivolous or a waste of time, which for a lot of people is probably the first time that they've ever been treated this way or have ever found community over this interest that becomes really meaningful. For a lot of people, I think the beauty community was a welcome sign. You are welcome here. You are my people. I mean, that's a big draw right there. But what I think is an extra layer of attractiveness to this is the open display of no hold back consumption. It was kind of shocking to me to see people buying all of this stuff and trying it out. It was new all the time, but that's not new to us anymore. If you've been here for a while, even a couple of years, or even if you maybe had heard about it and never come here before and you finally find it, was shocking to me. People were consuming in ways I wanted to consume. I wanted to try all the things. I wanted to be that person who could try, and also buy all the things that I really loved or other people recommended. An integral part of the beauty community was buying stuff. And buying was just as interesting as the makeup itself. And so while we came here for interest in makeup, we instantly got hooked on the consuming like a drug. And in the last, let's say even 5 years, the content has diversified, and there's even niches within it or people who do specific kind of content. We have the high-end makeup lovers, we have the makeup artists, we have the traditional studio light beauty gurus, we have the clean girls, we have the drugstore girlies, we have the small content creator. There's so many different kinds of creators on the platform that have different interests or even different skin types, skin tones, skin textures, and makeup styles. But what is at the connection of all of these, even the indie girls, doesn't matter. What connects all of these creators is a love of makeup and spending a whole shitload of money on it. This level of consumption was exciting at first, but becomes too much over time. It becomes too much. And I have 4 main things to say about this. Number 1, consumption-based identity. I've already kind of hinted about this and mentioned it already so far. I argue this is what happens when you enter the space for the first time. Maybe now, if you enter into the no-buy space or the no-buy section of the beauty space, then you won't have this experience. But I think if you entered probably before 2017 or 18, this is probably your experience. Or even if you're entering now, or you've entered in the last couple of years, I still feel like this is the cycle. I'm of the opinion that most of the love of makeup is tied to consumption or overconsumption. I feel like to be here meant that a creator's identity or love of makeup was tied to the overconsumption. It was almost like overconsumption was synonymous with a love of makeup. It often meant that us or you as a subscriber also took on that identity. And you also, not just taking on that identity yourself and consuming in this way, but having an interest in watching others do it too. And what I think happens is that this is exciting for a while. Watching people consume stuff is interesting for a while. Watching the new releases is interesting for a while. And I'm saying a while because I don't know how long that is for you. It could be 2 months, it could be 10 years. For me, to be here has meant that I had to buy beyond my means and basically just watch reviews and hauls. That was the content for a long time. We found so many ways to make that exciting. A full brand review, best of pink lipsticks, best of 2020, best of this, worst of that. And while worst of videos were maybe early anti-consumer videos that didn't make us want to buy, a lot of the other videos were just reviews. And it was exciting to see how people could make reviews or best of videos in new and creative ways. And even if you're somebody who's still in this place of like wanting to buy all the things and still having a love of the beauty space because of this, I feel like eventually the other shoe drops. I feel like eventually it's got to drop. That consuming so much of the need it now, buy it now, ad kind of content and the response that we have, it gets old eventually. We can't keep it up. We can't keep spending like this. Like eventually something's gotta give. And what I think is the starting place of discontent is the never enough. The creator is always getting new things every week, every month. Releases don't stop. And maybe you can't stop wanting other things either. It's overwhelming. The new releases, the color pop every week, they never slow down, they never stop. The industry never freaking sleeps. There's always something new to review. There's always some best of video. There's always something new to say about something new on the market. And even if somebody's like, I'm going to talk about old favorites, or I'm going to do a roundup of the best tinted moisturizers or the best mascaras, it's still hyperconsumption. This is for me when comparing and the constant I don't have that thing caught up to me. Beauty YouTubers also take on this never enough as well, not just the individual, because it's their job to review new makeup, and as long as new makeup exists, they're going to have a job, or I guess as long as people like them. So there is no intention of stopping. And then I think we as the viewers take on that as well. Consuming and shopping became the hobby for me after a while. And then the consumption became more enjoyable than the makeup. And when consumption is enjoyable, why are we questioning it? There's no real need because it's fun, it feels good. And I think that's a big part of the problem. But also we see this level of consumption as incredibly normal and not even a problem. And then consumption became part of our identity just as much as the makeup did. Listen, shopping was a hobby for me. I was shopping all the time. It took up all my time. And I literally had to force myself to find other hobbies. What I can say now is that I was never fulfilled by shopping. And I could never be as fulfilled with shopping as I am now. Exploring and finding hobbies that serve us, that speak to our soul, amazing, but shopping can't do that. Our hobbies should nourish us and should provide this positive support in our lives, and I think should make us feel good about ourselves. Sure, any hobby runs the risk of overindulgence. Makeup can be that hobby for you and that thing that nourishes you, but I don't think that buying makeup can ever be that. We can't find happiness in life through things that bring us discontent. I'm hoping that my point is clear, that being on beauty YouTube and having hyperconsumption as part of everyday content as tied to the thing that we love can be difficult to remove the shopping from the enjoyment of makeup. But I do think that the hyperconsumption that we see and the way that it makes us feel eventually, while it might have felt good at first, eventually brings discontent. On a smaller note, I think the language also plays a role here. And I also think a disillusionment with creators kind of cracked some of the veneer for folks who were around, I don't know, let's say like the 2015 to 2018 era, or maybe 2016 to 2018 to be more precise. For a lot of people, when it comes to the bigger beauty gurus, the undisclosed sponsorships, the promo codes, the whole Morphe thing, the everything's amazing, buy it, there was this, I don't know who to trust anymore. Or I don't actually know what's good anymore, because all they're ever saying is that everything's great. Or they're only talking about great things. And then also, I feel like the abuse of sponsorship and the mishandling of promo codes, affiliate links, whatever, was like, what? And I know, at least, for me, favorites videos were super popular back in the day. And it was like every 2 months they had a new favorite Holy Grail eyeshadow. What about that one? Or the decluttering something that they said was Holy Grail. The language was so hyperbolic. Everything is so great. Everything you're so obsessed with, got to run out to the store and buy. And I'm over here thinking, like, do I really need to go run to the store and buy a self-tanner? I think that distrust breeds discontent, but also I don't think that we trust people where everything is all that great. What I think furthers the distrust is I'm going to call it abuse of influence, but creators who knew, and still this applies to this day, that they influence their subscribers, but think about it only from their point of view. So what I mean by that is influencers do know that they influence other people. Like, there's this hyper awareness of that now today. I think a lot of creators don't see their influence as something to manage or something to really consider about how their personal choices and consumption influences the lives of the people that are watching them. They know they have influence because they make money off of it, and they know that they benefit from, like, they benefit financially from selling products or, promoting something or having an ad. There's a disconnect with the responsibility over the influence. They want us to buy things from them because it benefits them, opposed to thinking about how their influence influences the subscriber, taking ownership over that. Do I want to be having this kind of ad? Do I want to be producing buy content? Related to that as well, there is, back in the day, even now, I think there's very little role modeling of good financial health or responsibility, and including, like, responsibility of consumption. I still think now, I don't think that sponsorships in themselves are bad or evil. I think they can get out of hand by the creator. And yes, not every brand is made equal. Not every sponsorship is, is equally as good. Where I think it goes amok is with the creator. And not even just about sponsorships or having literally every video sponsored, but it's the consumption level and the influence on other people and on their subscribers. Like, do you want to be a role model, or do you want to convince people to buy stuff? And the more people buy from influencers, the more money they make. So they do have a vested interest in getting you to buy stuff. And I'm not trying to say that influencers are shitty people. No, but what bothers me is this lack of critical thinking and ownership and responsibility for how you influence other people. I'm not the only one who has become frustrated by this and having that be part of their experience of discontent, treating their audience like cash cows and almost like this endless, this body of people that can be exploited to buy whatever they want. That is the attitude that bothers me, not somebody having an internet presence or taking sponsorships point blank. I think overall, this lack of transparency or good role modeling of financial health or responsibility and taking responsibility over the influence matters a lot. Had anybody been open about their money or consumption, I had talked about consumption when I first started, I think I'd be in a very different place. And this leads me to the rise of the conscious consumer creator. I think this kind of content, once you see it, you can't unsee it. These are the videos and creators, a lot like mine, who make a lot of commentary style videos. The people who like makeup but don't necessarily need to buy it all, but are just thinking or are critical of how their consumption influences themselves and other people. And these are the people who have a more critical edge, who are being critical or critiquing the beauty industry, consumption, creators, let's say 4 years ago, thinking like Nisi Pisa, Lucia Tepper, even the Project Pan was a gateway for me into the non-consumer, the consuming less kind of channel, kind of content. And these channels start to get you thinking about your consuming levels and the levels of how other people have consumed too. Once I heard people talk about consumption, it was like this whole new window, this whole new door opened up. These are the people too who are really open about discontent and the problems of the beauty space that in turn get us thinking the same way, and I feel like are the nail in the coffin for a lot of people, where they can't watch that other kind of content anymore, or they go to it when there's a really specific purpose. I really love that this kind of content exists within inside the beauty space itself. And one of the things that I hold true to this day is that if you truly feel like you're a part of the community, you don't leave it when you feel like it's broken. You want to contribute to it positively, and you want to leave it better than when you found it. And I think a lot of people in this space are doing really great things for the beauty community, and they are just as part of it as the people who are reviewing the ColourPop releases. And I often think are necessary and help balance a lot of people's consuming habits. And it was seeing this content that shifted my own perspectives and my own interests. And seeing something outside the box for me felt so great than just the review. I didn't really fully realize that there was other kinds of content besides that. And it really helped for me to articulate where I felt like there were problems and what was making me unhappy about this kind of content. Not just what was making me unhappy, it was making me just consume. I was so wrapped up in consuming all the time. I thought that it was normal, became my new normal, and this kind of content helped me see, dude, that's not normal, it doesn't have to be normal. What I really love about beauty YouTube today is that there's a lot of this interdisciplinary kind of content that really brings in new perspectives. And I think that 5 years ago, let's say minimalism was its own kind of niche thing that wasn't really blending with other kinds of content. And now you have minimalism blending with makeup. And so today there's a lot of mixing and interweaving of content like minimalism and makeup, or finances and makeup. There's lots of things, we could call as interdisciplinary here, or commentary and makeup. There's lots of this interweaving that brings new perspectives. I think there's some perspectives from minimalism that are so common, almost second nature beliefs in minimalist circles that were completely new and novel when they came into the beauty space, because these weren't lenses that we were used to thinking through. And it helps challenge some of the beliefs and standards within the community. With the rise of conscious consumerism and the conscious creator, I think now it's way more difficult to not see some of these videos come up in your feed, at least at some point, than it was, let's say, 5 years ago. I don't even know if we could say conscious consumerism was a part of the space 5 years ago, but I wasn't part of that. So I don't want to say that like my experience dictates what's out there. I could have just not been informed about it. And once you have this kind of content come into your life, it really, I think, helps to articulate the discontent and what makes us unhappy, or the damage that some of our experiences is within the beauty community, what that does. For me, the beauty community is this living organism that changes and evolves with time. And it's done that for the better. Change is a good thing, and having our beliefs challenged is a good thing. Realizing that content we're consuming is damaging, that's a good thing. I think this is the rhetoric of where the beauty community is dead comes from, the fact that it's changing at all, and I think it's for the better. All this kind of content is still popping. They're still making their way downtown. They're still doing their thing, and they're still liked and enjoyed. But what I can say is that while you might like that content, I still think for a lot of people, it still brings discontent in a lot of ways. And I'm not here to police behavior, tell somebody you have to stop spending in that way, but I think that there's still a discontentment. There's still a discontentment that happens and influences the way that we shop. And I do think that conscious consumerism is as popular as it is because of how much discontent is bound up with the beauty space and consuming on beauty YouTube more generally. So to answer the question, can you ever be content watching beauty YouTube? Yes, you can. It just depends on the kind of content that you're watching. And I've kind of illustrated this cycle of, identity being bound up with the beauty space and then not being able to keep up with this purchase. I think this is the cycle that a lot of people will go through. This is just my theory, my opinion, my hypothesis. I do think that the overconsumption is just going to cause a lot of problems, or has caused a lot of problems for a lot of people within this space. The space has only grown and changed over the years to make room for other kinds of content that challenges the discontent, some of the norms happening within the field that bring the discontent. That's everything for you today. I'm really eager to hear your opinion, how you think beauty YouTube promotes discontent, or the cycle that I was talking about. I would love to hear all your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again around here soon.